Thank you for being here. Welcome. We are Belka, and we are in our seventh Belka Live Talk event or webinar. This one is also the first one talking about development, and I'm very proud of it because finally we were able to sneak in some content about our wonderful engineering team in Belka, and to discuss it with you and all the people that follow us on the social. I'm here with Federica.
That's me, Foltz. I'm a front-end engineer in Belka, and I develop mobile apps and design systems.
Thank you, Fede. And I'm Fabrizio, but everybody calls me Rizzo, and I'm the engineering manager of the Belka front-end team. And for today, Fede, do you want to introduce the agenda of the event?
Yes. So today we're going to make a component together. First of all, we're going to analyze it, and then we are going to talk about the repository that we are going to use. And of course, we need to talk about foundations and the team in order to style it. And then we are going to see some code. And the end of this webinar is for you and for your questions. If you had one, you can submit it by pressing the Q&A button on the Zoom menu, and you're going to see a menu like this one. And you can submit your questions and people can vote them.
Yeah, and also we can keep track of them, and we will answer the most voted question at the end of this presentation.
Yes, I also going to remind you that this session is recorded, so you will find both the live stream and the slides in the next Belka newsletter. So sign up if you haven't already. You can find the link here and also inside the chat. So feel free to take notes or don't. You're going to see the live streaming in another moment. So.
Okay. Before moving on with our live session, a few words about Belka, about us. Belka is a firm, a digital firm that helps companies to grow faster via their design system. We help the product team of the companies by embracing the design system philosophy. We strongly believe that design system is the proper way to build digital products. And it's not only the artifacts, the Figma files, the storybook files, the code, but it's really a philosophy that teams should embrace to deliver faster their interfaces. And that's what we strongly believe. We work with a bunch of companies. Maybe you know some of them. There are several Italian startups and more bigger companies, and even a few clients from abroad. Some case study or examples of our work. One that I'm really proud is the collaboration with the team of Spiagge.it. Spiagge is an Italian startup working in the tourism field. They are like the Airbnb for the beaches. So during the summer, or maybe if you are in Catania at the end of June, like Francesco told us, you can book your spot at the Lido in the front row through the web app and the mobile app. We help them by designing the component library on Figma and also develop the brand new mobile app with React Native. We've also collaborated with Factoring Cloud. I think we are a long partner with them. Factoring Cloud, I think, is the biggest invoicing service in Italy with more than 500,000 clients in the country. And with them, I've collaborated on a lot of projects, and moreover on their design system, even both on the design of the components on Figma and also the implementations, the implementation on the web part. But the project that I like the most is the mobile app, which I also collaborated with firsthand to build it. And we helped to redesign the whole interface, and we started to develop from scratch by leaving the Android and iOS and the native apps and rebuilding them with React Native. Another company, of course, because I mean, it's 2024, so you need to have some AI in your portfolio or in your wording. And we have collaborated with Indigo. And Indigo is a wonderful company that they build several AI agents that are very smart. And thanks to them, you can use their chatbot to integrate and boost your services or your e-commerce. And we also help them by bootstrapping their boarding to give the user the classical wow effect, like some of the people in our industry call it. And last but not least, we have worked with NEN, which I think is the most innovative utility company in Italy. And we help them by migrating their design system from Sketch to Figma. And also we refactored several funnels by using the brand new design system. But I think that I've bragged enough about Belka, so I think that I can leave the word to you, Fede.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to start with a point of view. You know, you are a developer, life is great, and it's Friday, and you're working on a design system, but suddenly you receive a Slack message from the designer, you know, and he just made a new component for the design system, and you're like, oh, on Friday, but you don't need to worry.
The evil designer.
Evil designer, yeah, I agree with that. You don't want this type of message on Friday. So, but we don't need to worry because we are prepared, we know what to do, and we are going to build this component together. So, like, who's that Pokemon? Or should I say, who's that component? Let us know in the chat what component do you think that we are going to build? I'm very curious to know what the guesses are.
What do you think, people?
What is this square? It's not Pikachu, you know. We don't know yet how to make a Pikachu inside the design system, but maybe we'll know in the future. I don't know. There's some guesses.
Yeah, a select, a button, another button,
okay.
An hamburger menu.
Okay, I think that I'm going to...
Also the accordion.
Accordion, okay.
That's a cool idea, Enrico.
Yeah, I think so, but I think that you guessed it wrong. I'm sorry. But we are going to make a card, and it's from the design system that we made for NEN. And in this card, the client can see some info about its natural gas supply.
And Fede, why did we choose a card?
I have a few options to answer your question. So the first one is that, I'm sorry, people, but I think that buttons tutorials are cliche. So like we are trying to follow tutorials about how to make the perfect button using React. I think that the web is full of that. So we're not going to make it. And because we already made a repository that is going to help us build the card, of course, we are prepared. And honestly, I think you can agree with me, Rizzo, but I think that this is a good component that allows us to start diving into the complexity of a design system. So
yeah, and also to use the parts of the design system to build a new component.
Yeah, so I think that is a smart choice.
Thank you, Francesco.
And like I said, we made a repository on GitHub that you can clone, and you can also find the link of the repository in the chat. And it's a ready-to-code template with everything you need to build this card with us. And yeah, feel free also to give us some feedback about how it's made, because we are happy to improve something. So. Okay, so first of all, we are going to take a closer look to our component or our Pokemon. And it's very important to analyze it before jumping into writing code, which is, I know, our favorite part, but we need to wait a minute. So first of all, we need to define each part of this card.
What is a part, Fede? part of the component.
Yeah, by part, I mean every small component that compose the card. So for example, we can see that there's a container, our big div that contains like everything, the purple one. And we can say that the upper part with the detail of the gas supply, you can see like gas word and the address of the client. We can define that as our header of the card. And of course, if there's a header, there's also a content, which is the center of the part with more info about the price of the gas supply. And then last but not least, we have a footer. But apart from the card structure, we can also see some other components that are contained inside of it. Apart from the typography. So we can define the badge component in the corner of our card, but we can also see that there's a call to action inside the footer. So now we know exactly how our card is made, so we can take a look at our repository in detail. Okay, so like I've said before, we made this ready-to-code repository for our internal team in order to start developing design system without making the boilerplate every time, which is a very consuming thing. So this is the result of our expertise after we made some design system. And one of my colleagues made a great article about that. You can find the link inside the chat. So he talked about how we made basically a design system repo for design systems. And for this repo, we made some choices regarding which technology to use and how to structure the file inside. So let's view it together. I also had to say that I have a very strong opinion about the technologies that we chose. So
Fortunately.
Yeah, I do.
We like strong opinions.
Of course. We ask for strong opinions, during the CV part when we find new people for the team. So first of all, we chose Storybook for showcasing components. It's an open source tool for UI components that lets developer view, test, and documentation, but also designers or clients can use Storybook for that. And every component is in isolation from the rest of the application. So I'm going to ask you, people on the web, do you know Storybook, and do you like it? I'm very curious about your strong opinion,
Have you ever used it?
Waiting for a few responses.
Oh, I see only love in the chat.
Oh, thank you, people. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. We chose Tailwind for styling component, which is a super famous CSS framework that provides a set of pre-designed utility classes. And I'm also going to ask you, what do you think about Tailwind? I hope you know, and maybe you tried it before. So let us know in the comments some other strong opinion.
Eduardo and Mazo learned from the first question, and now they are using the heart emoji to reply to this.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
But we have also some strong opinion on the other side. Filippo found it a little verbose.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I think it's a fair
it's a fair point.
It's a fair point.
Thank you for your strong opinion. We love that. And along with Tailwind, we also use CVA, which is the acronym of Class Variance Authority. CVA allows us to define different styles for every variant that a component can have in a very straightforward way. So in the screenshot, you can see the style that is going to be applied to the text component inside our repo. For example, we are saying that if the text as the prop size equals to XS, is going to have a font size of 12 pixels and a line height of 18. So for each prop, you can define different styles. And yeah. And
And
I
also for
really...
sorry, I was curious, but do you like it?
I love it because yeah, I hate writing CSS classes for everything. So I'm a very big fan of CVA.
Okay.
Do like people on the internet know CVA?
Or do you use any alternative to CVA maybe?
Let us know. Okay, I think that I can move forward. Now we know our component and how our repository is made. And the last part that we need consists of the styling rules that our design system have. So chat, do you know what design system foundations are?
Or have you
Suspense?
ever implemented it by starting from a Figma file and importing them into your code base?
Maybe you know them from some designers of your team, I don't know.
Oh, Francesco's designer knows how to do foundation.
Okay, thank you, Francesco. Do we have other answers?
Giulio is lurking.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so stay tuned about the foundation, theme, because we are working actually. The designers are working on an article about foundation. So you're going to see that in our blog, I think in a few weeks.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know what foundations are, basically designers, before making components, they work on a file called foundation. And that basically represents the source of truth of spacings, colors, typography, icons, and every repeated variables that we need in order to style our components. So there's some examples in this file. You can see like colors and spacings, some typography, and for example, you can also have border radius variants. So it's very useful for us developers. So we take this foundation file and we make components for the typography, and we made a Tailwind's theme file for variables like colors, spacings, font, etc. And in the screenshot, you can see the theme that is going to be inside our repo. So we've defined the colors, the font family, and the spacings, so we can use it across all of our application. Okay, so now it's time to see some code. Like promised, I've already prepared everything. You can see my beautiful...
Are you going to code live, Fede?
I'm not, I'm sorry. I'm one of those person who forgets how to type on a keyboard when someone's watching. So I'm going to copy paste it. But I'm going to also explain everything, so we don't have to worry. And first, before start jumping into VS Code, let's see how Storybook is made. So we have our first component, which is a badge, and we add some variant like success, black, etc. We are going to use error, and this is our Figma file. As you can see, this one is going to be our badge. So the card is empty right now because we didn't make it yet. So, and then we have our call to action, which is basically a text with an arrow. And then we have our typography component. So we have a text with some different size and weight. And then we have our title also with some different HTML definition for it. So we need to make our card. Right now, this is empty. We don't have anything. So let's start by define, like I've said in the presentation, our container. This one.
Do you remember, chat? These are the parts that we identified earlier, and then we are going to replicate them through code.
Yes. So we have our container that I called card, the big div that contains everything. As you can see, there are some props. So we have our supply props because this card is going to have two variants depending on the supply. So we are going to have gas supply or electricity. So we are going to pass it as a prop. And we're going to pass this prop to CVA. This one is come to the styles file, and we're going to see it from in a minute. Then we have our ref prop, and a class name, and the children. So inside the design system, we are going, generally, we make every component very abstract in order to use it across all of the design system in a very straightforward way. So this is our skeleton. And we use this display name for debug purposes because the component has the forward ref. And if we need to debug things with this display name inside the console, we are going to see that the error is coming from this component. Okay,
That's
so
neat.
now, yeah, it is. Now we have our container, so I'm going to save. Okay, we haven't seen anything because we need to then import those components inside our stories. So we are going to move forward to our header part, which is basically like the same thing, but we don't have our supply prop because the header is not going to change depending on the supply type. So we also have like our class name prop, our children, the rest of the props, our ref, and then the CVA styles for the card header.
Okay, very similar.
So, yeah, it is. And then we have our content. And I think that you know what's inside the content, like basically the same, but with different styles.
And what's coming next?
Yeah, then the other part is like the same. So I think that you know what we are doing. So if you have some questions, just I remind you to write them inside the chat. Okay, and then we are going to export everything.
Feda, before moving to Storybook, how did you find yourself splitting the component in this way?
So we are going to see in a minute how every part is going to compose in the card, but I think that it's a very organized way, especially for this type of component that have different parts. So it's not a button, you know, so we have to make a structure
Assemble
of it.
things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, I'm curious in the people that are listening to us today, do you think that component composition is a proper thing to do and maybe something that we should write about on our blog? Because it's a hot team that is the engineering team. It's speaking in the last few weeks, and we are wondering if it's something that you want to hear more from us. Let us know eventually in the chat.
Yes, we are curious about your opinion. So now I'm going forward to the style file.
Okay.
And we can see that we are using CVA, and then we have different constants for every part of the card. And the first one has the supply prop, and as you can see, if the supply prop is gas, we are going to have a lightish background, and if the supply prop is electricity, we are going to have a yellow background. And then the other CVA constants are for the other parts of the card are just for defining borders or padding. And then I just want to make a few words about our index.ts file that exports everything. And yeah, we're using dot notation for the card.
Oh.
So what we need to do is importing everything, and then we have to create an object with each part, and then we're going to export the object by default. So now we are going to see how everything is working, because
so we are going to use
working,
the dot notation. So we're going to use the dot notation on the implementation of the card.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me make an example. So we are going to start writing card, and then you can see if I just use the dot. That's why, dot notation. We can see every part that we've defined in the index.file. So I'm going to create our root, which is our container, and then I'm going to
the big div.
Yeah, and I'm live coding, just this part. So I'm going to pass to our root the arguments of storybook that basically are our supply prop. So I'm going to save, and as you can see, we have our square basically, and we can also change the supply prop, and the background is changing because CVA is doing that basically. And that's our container.
And also, people, Tommaso and Ramara, if you want, you can type your question in the Q&A box, which is, I think, below left on your screen of Zoom, and the question will be in the proper section instead of the general chat. Otherwise, maybe we can forgot to answer the question. That's the only thing.
Yes. Thank you
Thank you.
that. So I'm going to move forward, and we're going to add our component, which is the badge. As you can see, is the error type, but we can change to the, I don't know, maybe success type, and it's changing accordingly. I don't know how to type. Okay. Perfect. And then we are going to move forward to the second part of our card, which is our header. Okay, I'm going to change the supply to gas so we can see that the card are the same.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, amazing.
And the icon changed automatically.
Yeah, that's why I've already made those constant in order to help me changing the icon and also the text according
based on
to
the supply prop.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. So we're going to move forward to our content. Sorry, I don't have a mouse, so I'm just using my Mac. Okay, so this is our content. And as you can see, the font it's not the same because the NaN font is a premium font, and the designer that passed me the Figma file just warned me that I couldn't use the premium font in a public repo. So
it's too beautiful for us.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Rizzo. So inside the repo, you're going to use the classic, Roboto font, which is good for everything, I think. But I'm not a designer, so yeah, my opinion just it's that. And then last but not least, we have our footer component, and that's our card. Okay. I don't know why I can just resize this Figma, so sorry for the boomer moment. And then we are going to change the supply prop, and as you can see, everything is changing accordingly. And yeah, basically we made our card. And just last thing, those classes are from Tailwind. So basically we are saying, for example, that this flex is, this div, sorry, is needs to be display flex with full, etc. So we're going to pass those words, and Tailwind makes them like CSS classes. So it's verbose, I know, but it can be useful for those things.
Yeah, especially with variants, and if you configured CVA correctly, you can avoid to repeat a lot of words, which is probably the most common issue with Tailwind.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's our card. So I'm going to jump again inside our presentation. And yeah, so we've made together the first component. And thank you.
Yeah, and I also want to remember that we are going to release the repo. In the repo, you're going to find everything except the card, which we have built now. But in the next few days, we are going to release also the an update on the repo with also the card part that we saw together today.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Stay tuned. And Fede, why is this slide blank? Do you know?
I know.
Oh.
Yeah, but you need to tell me. Maybe I don't know.
No, this slide is just to remind you that if you need a safe pair of hands, you can contact us. Belka is not only a design company, we also have a front-end engineering team, which is very capable. And the sponsor of our event,
Suspense.
Is our audit service, and it's called Design System Checkup. If you feel that your design system isn't in the best of shape, and it can happen to everyone, most companies don't need Belka, but maybe if you feel that we can be of some help, reach out to us. Also, with design system checkup, we are going to ask you a few questions, and if you feel like maybe you don't know who is in charge of your design system or who has the last word of the implementation of a component, maybe the developers aren't using the design system, only the designers, or even vice versa, only the developers know that there is some sort of design system, but designers are not aligned. We can help you to fix that for your company. And as you can see, we have helped a bunch of company already with on this kind of topic. So feel free to ask us any question that you might have about design systems. And I'm going to paste in the chat. Also, Serena from the secret room, can you paste the link, please, for design system checkup for the people in the chat? Okay, I think someone already did. Great. So I think that we are at the end of our presentation, and we are going to move to the Q&A section. For everyone, do you have any feedback, something that you want to know from us? You can use the box or even the chat if you you prefer. Now we can watch the chat during the presentation, so we can answer any questions. Ramana has one question, Fede. She asked us, do we use Figma's dev mode? And how designer and developer communication happen about the component interaction. Which tool do we use for the documentation? It's a very broad question, but maybe you can start nailing it.
Okay, so yes, we use the developer mode, and we also use mainly the playground. I don't know if it's a mode or if it's like a plugin or something like that, but when you have the developer mode active and you can you press on the component, there's like a button and that says like opening playground, and here you can like play with the component, you can change variables and see like how the component is changing. So you like you represent the states of the component. And then, like she asked how the communication between the designer and developer, how we communicate, right?
Yeah, how we communicate about the component interaction details.
Okay, so yeah, apart for the playground thing, the designers like leave us some like tables and with different states of the component. And usually our handoff is not happening in just one moment. So we are free to leave comments inside the Figma during the project, all of the design system projects. So we talk like basically every day in order to see what changes are like how is the state of the component.
Yeah, I think that we answered that. Also, Fede, can I ask you if you can turn off the screen share?
Okay.
Right now, while we are answering, then maybe we can bring it back later. Okay. Eduardo is asking us that he says that they are using a high customizable component library in their project. And do you suggest to use Storybook only for project component like the card you are developing? What do you think, Feda? Do you want to?
So only for the project component like the card. Yeah, Storybook it's mainly for components. So like you can like insert flows or everything inside or other things inside Storybook apart from for components. So I think that a good way to approach that is to use Storybook for every component that you have inside the component library.
Yeah, also maybe Eduardo, if I can add something, I think that we like to use Storybook inside the repository that holds the design system, which usually is a separate repo from the actual project. So maybe you can have a repository with the Storybook and all the components, implementation and foundation. And then maybe you can have your mobile app or your web application, which is using the design system as a dependency. Also, I think that Storybook should be included in the final code introduction. It's just a tool for developer and designer and basically internal use it's like a documentation tool. You can give it access maybe to third-party developers, which is very useful. But besides that, you should use it for documenting document components.
Yes, so I see that there's another question. Do you follow from Anonymous? Yeah. Do you follow a specific pattern for component composition, like atomic design? So it depends.
What do you think, Feda?
It depends, because we are trying to be like very organized in how we make components. So every component has its own folder, etc. But we are just using like the dot notation as a pattern in order to write those components, and we mainly follow the designer Figma. So if the designer like create the badge like we saw before for the car with the label inside, we are going to create those badge with the label inside. So we start create component starting from the Figma file. So we have like a line from there.
Yeah, also, I think it's a very cool question, beautiful anonymous person, because when Atomic Design came out, I think that it's a great book to read, and it says very insightful thing about splitting components in smaller parts. And one thing that we are wondering, and that's why earlier I told you that we are considering about writing an article on how the component composition could be made, is that in some situation, we feel like that Atomic Design maybe, I would say backfire, because it's a little bit too detailed on the splitting and the utilization of the components. But I think it's a great starting point, especially if you have never done it before. So yeah, we are wondering about how to communicate. I think it is also a very hot theme because we are also looking on the internet about how do other developers or designers split and do the component composition. And I think it's a very difficult question to find answer on the web. So yeah.
Yeah, it really depends on the type of project that you're doing and your team, basically. Okay, so I'm going to jump to another question from another anonymous person. Do you use the code generated by DevMod in Figma?
Have you ever tried, Fede?
I didn't try it
Okay.
yet. We are not using it right now because like we made this organized and we made this way to code across our team. So like if someone jumps into the same project after me, for example, they know how to write the code because we decided it before. And I don't know, I think that the code generated by Figma is like in beta for the thing that we do. It's not, I know that it's not in beta, but like for developers, I don't know. I don't know, Ritz, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think that the worst part about the code generation is that you can't give Figma your own rules and your own technology. You can't ask, maybe there is a plugin and I don't know, but I don't know if you can ask Figma to generate code maybe with such a configuration of Tailwind, for example. And you need to basically, I prefer the idea that we have our set of rules to build and generate components, which everyone in the team agreed on. And we use that as the main source of truth to building components. DevMod, I think it's very useful to inspect and to learn how the component and also which variants and the tokens the designer have chose for the specific part of the component. But yeah, I think that we never ship code directly generated from Figma yet. Maybe in the future it will be possible. I hope so.
Yeah, I would like also to keep my job, you know, as a developer. So we'll see. Okay.
This question is beautiful. What do you think of designers, friends, enemies, frenemies?
That's beautiful question. Yeah. So we'd like to say that, yeah, everyone is trying to do their job, you know, our developers and them designers. So, and we try to communicate in the best way possible. So I think that we are more friends than enemies, you know, and yeah, in Belka we are trying to standardize this process, this end of process. So we'll try to not become
You wrote an
enemies.
article about it.
Yeah, we wrote an article about it. So I wrote an article about it.
You wrote an article, yeah.
Sorry, it's Friday also for me. So yeah, I wrote an article about end of with my designer colleague Eugenia. And we also talk about, you know, receipts. So it's a very Italian thing to read.
But I like the irony about having I don't know, a moral war between designer and developers. It's always fun to have it.
I agree. I think that we have more time for other questions.
Yeah, Tommaso is asking us, do you suggest any component library such as Radix or UI for complex component, or is it better to build everything from scratch?
Okay, so I've said earlier that we made this pre-made repository for our design system, and what I released to you on the GitHub, it's like a less complex version of it. But in the first, the repository that we are using as Belka developers as Radix Radix inside of it. So we are using Radix for every design system that we are making. So I suggest to use libraries like it in order to handling better complex components. So yeah, I suggest that.
Yeah, I agree. Headless UI library are very useful. We love Radix, which is one of the most recent, even if in the front end world, recent is like 1 day. And then yesterday is already old because everyone loves to build new things from scratch. Yeah, Tommaso, shadcn/UI, it's beautiful, and we use it when we need to build, when we need primitives to build more complex components. In the current repo that you find, we haven't included because we didn't need it to build the card. But yeah, we are using it for other design systems. Also, Francesco is asking in what case it is useful to decentralize front-end components to a separate repo. So, if you want, I can answer that, Fede.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that the question is not about when you want to decentralize the repo, but it's more when do you need to have a design system? Because if you are starting a new project from scratch, maybe you are in a startup, you need to deliver ultra fast is not a problem of introducing technical debt. You need to be fast, you need to deliver. That's the point. In that situation, you don't need a design system. You need to just ship things and features. That's unlucky to say, but that's how it works. When you reach the point in which you need to, of course, you have built a product team, you have designer, developers, maybe even some project managers to keep aligned on the state of the product. You don't want to retake the same decisions on the UI implementation. That's when you want to build a design system. And that's the moment that you want to decentralize the front-end components to a separate repo. You can start building a project with basically a component UI folder in your scaffolding, holding all the components. It's fine, and you can also apply the same rules. Then when you need to standardize it, document it, give it access to everyone, then maybe you need to you could move it to a separate repo.
Okay, yes, I agree. So we have another question. Do you implement variables like designers do in Figma? Do you replicate naming, variations, etc.? So the answer is yes. Designers usually create their foundation using tokens, and we use a plugin to transform those tokens into a JSON file that we are going to use inside our design system. So we do that. It's easier, it's less complicated. So I can see Mattia in the chat. He was in the first in our presentation. He is the hero designer.
The hero designer, yeah.
Yeah.
So another question, how do you maintain aligned components library and Figma?
So sorry, I was reading Giulio's answer. So we don't have like plugins or something that updates the code between Figma and our component library. So we basically rely on communication. We like to write comments on Figma, and we are also using like small tags inside the component in Figma with like some emojis, web or smartphone, and with like a state if the component is already been deployed or not. So we can see like straight away if we are going to work on that or don't as a developers.
Yeah, also if I can add something.
Yeah, sure.
Basically, I think it's not a problem to keep Figma and components aligned. It's more to know that there is something that you need to change. That's where the issue lies. And also, I think that we have that issue in our weekly issue thread, which basically is how to keep a changelog from the designer that something has changed on the Figma, and you need to implement and keep it aligned. We are working on finding and tuning, finding a new way to handle it and tuning our process. But besides that, it relies on the communication, and that's why you build also a design system to force you to have this kind of communication between your product team. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, so I think that we finished our questions.
Yeah, also, I think we have a few minutes left, but we have a few slides to conclude the event.
I'm going to share the screen again. Okay. So next slides. So yeah, well, thanks everyone for the question, for being here today. We tried this new thing to held a live talk on Friday. Let us know if it's a good idea compared to the midweek event. And also, we remind you to subscribe to the newsletter to receive the slides, the link to the registration of this event, and also the updated repo, which will come next week. And one last thing, or maybe has happened, there is more. We have our next live talk scheduled already, and it's going to be on the 24th of May. So it's going to be, I think, a Wednesday in the afternoon, and we are going to talk about handling responsiveness through multiple components. And thank you, Serena, for pasting the link in the chat. And feel free to share it and to give us any feedback about this presentation. If you would like to have Belka to talk more about coding and the developers, let us know. And I think that we can say goodbye and have a nice weekend. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us.